Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WWE Know Your Role. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Victoria. And today's episode is probably one of my favorites because today we're talking about heels. And these are our top 10 heels of wrestling.
Love heels.
They're my favorite. And my number 5 is Triple H. Now, Triple H started out in WCW where he kind of had a heel character, but it really kind of progressed in the WWF when he came in as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the aristocrat. I mean, he would bow when he would do moves or when he would get into the ring and have little ribbons in his hair. And you can just tell by looking at him that he was better than you, or that's what he thought. And that was a great persona to have. And as time went on and his character started to develop, he came in DX, which he was still sort of a heel-like character, but after DX started splitting up, he became the Game. That is one of the best promos by Triple H. He became the Game, which meant that he was better than everybody else, every wrestler. He was what people should look up to. And that is a way to get a lot of heat from the boys. A lot of heat, and probably even maybe real heat. One of the best things, though, that I loved was when he married Stephanie McMahon. Now, it's very hard to turn a excellent heel into a baby face, and that's what Triple H did with Mr. McMahon. And that had to be one of the best things that they had done in the WWE at the time, because you started to feel this real heat between everybody, and you didn't know if it was real or fake because you heard all these rumors. And this is before, a lot of internet came about, so you would watch it thinking like, maybe this is real. And as time went on, I like how Triple H uses his heel. And what I mean by that is that he started to cheat, and I love a heel that cheats. To me, that's a real heel, because not only do you have the skill to back it up, but you can also cheat, which makes it that that little extra to your character, and that's why I love Triple H.
Yeah, Triple H, when he got paired with Stephanie, I think that's what just threw him over the top. Because not only do you have Triple H, but you have Stephanie McMahon, who is, let's admit, she could almost be in this list. She's not, but she could be in this
league. But she's here today because
yeah.
I'm a Steph fan.
Yeah, and and even when he first started with DX, they were heels. They were heels, and they were great heels. And Triple H and the thing that I thought made him a really good heel too, is when he was a heel, he was on top of his game. When he was with Stephanie, he was on top of his game, winning championships, and I mean, you gotta hate that when heels just keep winning the championship. So, very good pick.
Yeah,
very good pick.
Also too is that he had a woman bodyguard, which was so cool. That's so heel, and I loved it with China. That was excellent.
That's a good point. All right, so my first one will be your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle. I love Kurt Angle, especially when he was a heel. Kurt Angle started out, every time you hear his music, you chant, "You suck." Now that's a heel. Every time we go to hockey games and every time the refs blow it, they play the do 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 do, and everybody at the whole hockey game,
yeah,
"You suck." And what made him a good heel too is he was funny. He was really funny. And me and my one buddy from high school, we were big Kurt Angle guys. Just loved him. I mean, because he was so cheesy on his promos and all that, but then he got in the ring and he whooped some ass in the ring, and that was good. And then he goes to TNA, and at TNA, I mean, he really was the first real big face heel in TNA, and did a lot of great things for them there as a heel. So Kurt Angle, he's got to be in there.
Yeah, I liked what he did because he would roll with this heel. And what I mean is that he would be the comical heel, or else he would be the real badass heel. But, in the ring, it didn't matter. You knew that he was a heel, but he could still kick everyone's ass. And that's why I love Kurt Angle. And Kurt Angle grew on me. Because when he first came out, I'm thinking this guy looks like a doofus. He looked like a doofus. I don't know about you guys, but he kind of looked like a doofus.
Still love it.
I know you do. So my number 4 is the Iron Sheik. Now, Iron Sheik is a little bit back in the day, but the Iron Sheik is what really classifies a heel. At the time, he was facing, probably the biggest baby faces of that era and, of all wrestling. Those were very, very much baby faces. Hulk Hogan. He beat Hulk Hogan for the belt, the ultimate babyface. And then he also beat Bob Backlund, who had a 6-year reign with the belt. That is a babyface to the max. And to be beaten by somebody, he had to be the ultimate heel. Now, with his character, he was Persian, so he has something called the Persian Challenge. So when you get in the ring, he had these 2 weights, and they're shaped like big bowling pins, and he would throw them up over his head like this. I know I look like a gorilla, but he would do that, and he would do 100 of them without breaking a sweat. And then he would challenge his, opponent, like, do that too. And, I mean, these guys are trying to do it, and they can barely do it, and they're huffing and puffing, and then he would attack them around 50, if they can even make it to 50. That way he would wear out his opponent before the match, and that way he could win. That is a great heel, and he is a great mouthpiece. He has that, little Iraqi accent, but I mean, he would spit when he talked, and he was loud, and he would interrupt people, and that's why I loved the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, and it helped that he was foreign.
Yeah.
His promos, he had that accent, and you're just like, and then every word, if you watch anything he does, is F this, F that. There's not one clean thing that he says in there. And all he did was, he was just a heel. And he kicked ass in the ring. He was just a heel, kicked ass in the ring, had his little Iraqi thing going on, and yeah, there's not much more to say about him.
A little bit. The only thing that you have to, what I would say is that, especially during the time of the Gulf War, he became the biggest heel, and especially when he got Sergeant Slaughter on his team. That was just, so many people were pissed off at that.
I remember that. It's crazy.
That Sheik was good.
Yeah. All right, so my second one has to be Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, just a heel. And what I like about Eric Bischoff, too, as a heel, is he was so powerful, especially WCW. He was so powerful. And he's actually always been in a power role. Even when he went to WWE, he was, the general manager.
Yeah.
So he's always been in that power role, but you look at him, and he's just this wimpy guy that anybody could kick his ass. But he still has that swagger to him that I'm better than you. And, and obviously back with WCW with NWO, and, he kind of took over kind of NWO. He kind of ended up becoming their mouthpiece and everything about them. And then, and then also makes him a heel is he was the person who was trying to bury Vince. And he openly admitted it every single time, to bury Vince McMahon. He lived like the heel character, but he was almost really a heel in real life too. And then the fact that he couldn't even beat up a fly, you gotta throw him on there.
What the favorite part about Bischoff was that when he challenged Mr. McMahon on a Nitro, he challenged Mr. McMahon and waited in the ring for him, and and he just looks like a little just a wimpy dude. How cool is that? How heel is that to call out your #1 rival on your own show to come there and kick his ass? That is so heel. It's great. I loved it.
It was ballsy.
Yeah, and he was such a good mouthpiece. He could say anything, and he just knew what was going to piss you off. And that's why Bischoff has to be somewhere, because he's kind of an asshole. And especially the stuff with Steve Austin, when he fired Steve Austin over like a FedEx or a Telex or something. That was so cool. He's that type of dick, and that's why we love him.
Exactly.
So my number 3 is Hot Rod. I love Roddy Piper. I don't know, I'll probably talk about him in almost every video because I love everything that he does. Piper, and I don't want to say too much because, I could say so much about Piper, I just don't want to rant on forever. A thing that I will say, though, is that he was facing a match against, I think it was Chavo Guerrero, and I think this was Eddie's uncle or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, he got in a fight with him, and to make amends with him, he said, you know what, since I, have done wrong things to you, I will learn to play the Mexican national anthem on my bagpipes. So he comes out the next time, and I don't know where this took place. I think it was in when he was doing a round in Portland, but I'm not quite sure. But anyways, he comes out, and he starts playing on the bagpipes, La Cucaracha. Piper was such an asshole to everybody, and he was the best mouthpiece. He can rant on forever. To me, he was better than The Rock. He could just spew some bullshit out of his mouth just to piss off everybody, and the fans got into it. The fans loved him or hated him. He hit Jimmy Snuka over the head with a coconut during an interview because he thought he was boring him. Like, for real did. Like, that's pretty cool, and that's a great heel. I love you, Roddy Piper.
So you just took I was going to say about the coconut on the head.
Sorry.
I was like, please don't say it. Let me. Oh well. But no, he was really the first. He was the first heel that it was cool to be heel. I mean.
Oh yeah.
It was so cool. Like when you see Piper do that stuff, you're like, what? That's awesome. But you still at the time, they weren't getting the pops like some do now. But Piper was so good on the bike. I mean, why do you think he has his Piper's Pit and all that? I mean, he was the first heel that was bad and a mouthpiece that could throw both those together. And I mean, just Piper was.
He faced Mr. T, which was, huge Hollywood superstar at
and
the time.
And it was WrestleMania 1.
Yeah, and then he also kicked Cyndi Lauper. I mean, he can piss off some people. No, that's really good.
Exactly. All right, so my next one, I went with CM Punk.
Such a sore subject,
I know. Now, CM Punk, I mean, when he came out there and did the straight edge and all that, oh, it was great. It was great. And my biggest thing about CM Punk now, and why I have to throw him on the list, is because he's the only heel now, that current heel-ish, with the past, 4 or 5 years, that was actually a good heel. All the heels nowadays, you just look at them like Orton and them, you're just like, you're a heel, yeah, but I don't even like you. He was that heel that you wanted to hate, but you also wanted to like. And WWE's never gotten to do that since him. And through this new generation stuff, it feels like that they can't do that. And he pulled it off. He pulled it off beautifully. So, kudos to CM Punk. And then he had Paul Heyman too with him, which is another guy that just elevates you to that next level of a heel. I mean, it's got to be CM Punk.
Oh, sure. And CM Punk, you can tell that's really his personality. Like, you can kind of tell that he's very out there and he just says what he feels. And this is before he had his pipe bomb and things like that. This is who he is. So it makes you hate him and love him at the same time. And especially right now, a lot of people are pissed at him. So if he were to come back, just saying if he were to come back, he would be the ultimate heel. I mean, this would probably be the biggest heel we've ever seen in wrestling, period.
Yeah, but if he comes back, I don't think he'd be quite the heel. But it shows that right now he's proved, he's the last one to do it, and there hasn't been anybody since that actually could be that great heel. And that's a wrestler.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman, he's a good heel.
He's such a great. I think he's
a great mouthpiece.
Sure, of this generation, I think Paul Heyman is the best mouthpiece heel there is, and I think time will tell.
And Lana's a great. But we're getting off.
We're getting off. Okay, yeah.
Back to our list.
This is our private wrestling talk
yeah,
that
we'll
we
just
talk
keep
about.
spewing forever. I mean, that's what it happens.
It's true. So my number 2.
It's damn true.
So my number 2 is Mr. McMahon. What a great heel. Just knew, because he is the business, so he knew the business, and he knew how to do it perfectly. For me, where it starts is that when he finally said that it's not real, it's sports entertainment. That pissed off so many people. That pissed off old school wrestlers who've been protecting this business for such a long time. And it also pissed off the fans, because how many times of you wrestling fans out there have to argue with somebody when they tell you wrestling is fake? And you argue with them. And I hate talking to people that wrestling's fake. I just want to say, well, go fuck yourself. Because it is not fake. Yes, the storylines are thought out. But wrestling, to me, is still very real. So when he did that, he pissed off so many people. Number 2 is what everybody should know who watches wrestling. The Montreal Screwjob.
I had in my head, Brett screwed Brett.
And exactly what I was going to say, stop it. Because that is probably one of the best known quotes there is Brett screwed Brett. Now when he did this, I mean, he pretty much said, you know what, I'm the bad guy. I am going to roll with it. And he did. And he did it with Steve Austin, which was great because Austin was such a good babyface. I do not count Austin as a heel. He was a babyface. Just because he said some bad words and drank some beer does not mean he was a heel. He was a babyface. So when Mr. McMahon went up against him, it was such a perfect match. And I just want to put a little mention in there, an honorable mention of my OMG moment, probably my number 2 in wrestling, was the first time he faced Stone Cold and I saw Mr. McMahon's body. I thought, where the hell has been hiding all those muscles all these years? And to me, I'm like, well, now, not only now is he the boss of the company and, a great heel, he now has a body and now he's a badass. And I love his personality. I love the way he walks down the ring like this, like he has shit in his pants, and the way he says, "You're fired." I love it. And I love Mr. McMahon. And I love Stephanie McMahon. I love Shane McMahon. I'm a big McMahon fan.
Now with Mr. McMahon, first off, when he took off and his shirt and how ripped he was, you're like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. But there's nobody in the world at that time if you actually got to go to like the Raws and stuff at that time, you wanted to actually see Vince come down that aisle.
Oh yeah.
You wanted to just boo him. You're just waiting that whole Raw. Even if it took till later in the show, you didn't care. You're just waiting there, and once that music hit, no chance. You're like, oh, boo, boo, son of a boo.
Yeah, it's so true.
And it felt so good every time.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just did it right. He did everything right. I mean, you get on that mic, shut up, fam.
Yeah,
he got the crowd into it. He humiliated himself all the time. He just did everything right as a heel. I'm shocked he's not your number 1. I'm interested to see where your number 1 goes because that's a number 1 right there.
He was almost my number 1, by the way.
Yeah, no, yeah, and he's just. I mean, it's Vince McMahon. I mean, just the way, like you said earlier, the way he walked down the ring just made you want to kick his ass.
So true.
Too bad he took his shirt off and I'm like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, and then I was like, never mind, not a good idea, run away.
All right, so my number 2, the People's Champ, The Rock. Now I have to, you can say he's a babyface and all that, but The Rock was a great heel. I mean, when he first came out of Rocky Maivia, and he was supposed to be this big babyface, and then the fans just started booing him. His first match just started booing him. So, WWE Creative kind of, because they actually listened and back then and changed things up on the fly instead of keeping to a script, whatever. But,
another story.
Yeah, another story for another. Anyways, so, they end up putting him with the Nation. He takes over with the Nation, and, he's the leader of the Nation. The Nation was a big deal, too. And, they had that feud with DX and all the things they went through. Mm-hmm. It was a really good heel there. Then he got with Vince McMahon. That's where he went over the top. That's where he got all his lines. All his lines now he says as a face. That was his jabroni, his SmackDown Hotel, his Rudy Poo candy ass, all those and the millions and millions of fans. Those were all him as a heel. I mean, he was sitting there on that mic saying the millions, and and everybody boo boo.
Yeah.
And millions, and it was great. You didn't see a guy just have that kind of ego to where he added the crowd to the thing without them there and just pretended like it happened. It was awesome. It was awesome stuff. Rock totally deserved it because he was so good on that mic with saying those certain things and backing it up in the ring and helping him going with Vince. That's really what put him to my number 2.
Yeah.
And that's also another reason that you could almost say that Vince, props to Vince because you could throw with Vince and then you're ultimate heel. But Rock did it on his own too. So I can't really.
It's the way he spoke. And now, why Rock was a heel for me, and I don't know about everybody else, but why I thought Rock was a heel is because he was so babyface when he came out. With his, hair all greased up and all smiling all the time. He was so babyface that it made him heel, and it made me hate him so much because I am a heel fan. So when he first came out, I hated him. And then when he became the corporate champ and stuff like that, I still hated him because it was just ingrained in me to hate him, and which I love. I love to hate a wrestler, and I thought The Rock did it the best. And he could, school anybody. I mean, the best talkers, The Rock could still outdo you because he was a better heel. Like Chris Jericho. I think Chris Jericho is one of the best talkers in the world, but The Rock is still better because The Rock can still figure out a way to get his lines in, and which is why I love The Rock.
You just reminded me because, when another reason why I think he should be a heel is because when he first started wrestling and, his hair was kind of down by the end of the match, that thing was like up to here and you're just like, what the hell is that shit?
Yeah, you kind of have to hate him.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah. So now,
Next.
My number 1 is, I feel like I'm going to get a lot of heat for this one, but I don't care because it's my countdown. So my number
Damn
1
right.
is Andy Kaufman. Yes, he was not a professional wrestler. It doesn't matter. It's wrestling. It's the wrestling atmosphere. Now, if you guys don't know the Andy Kaufman story, Andy Kaufman had a great idea. He called Vince McMahon Sr. to pitch this idea, and Vince McMahon Sr. was like, this is a great idea. I really want to do it.
Surprising.
Yeah, but he's like, I can't figure out a way to put you in. It's just not going to fit with our program. But he got him in contact with somebody else. And now this is true. I read it in a book, and I read it, it's also on their Wikipedia, but he contacted Jerry the King Lawler. Now, Jerry the King Lawler was the ultimate babyface of Memphis. The ultimate babyface. So, Andy Kaufman comes in there and decides he's going to wrestle women. And not wrestle women wrestlers. He's going to wrestle fans. Women fans. And he dubbed himself the intergender champion. And all he did was face females. So, yes, the females are now pissed off. And he was also saying that, if someone does pin me, I will let them marry me. So, all the women are pissed. But he couldn't... see, this is what I mean. The man knew the business. He knew how to rile up a crowd. But not only the women, but he got the men. He started doing little vignettes and promos and sending them to Memphis, where he would pick up bars of soap and teach people from Memphis, Tennessee, how to use a bar of soap and toilet paper and things like that, and tell women what their job was, to be barefoot in the kitchen peeling potatoes. That is so heel and so brilliant, and it was before before anything like that came around. And I think it's just, I wish this would have happened a little later, because I think it would have gotten a way bigger pop. But since he was just so ahead of his time. And it really, after that, it didn't just go there. And they got in a match with Jerry the King Lawler, which he lost. And he got like 3 pile drivers from Jerry the King Lawler. But it didn't stop there. It ended up going to Hollywood, which is, Andy Kaufman's, his wrestling grounds, apparently, yeah. And they go on the Dave Letterman show, and this is the time where people still weren't quite sure if wrestling was real or fake. So they go on there, and they just cannot even sit next to each other, and, Andy Kaufman's playing the Hollywood angle, like, oh, I was just acting, it was no big deal, and, I don't know why he's so mad at me, and, and it goes on, and Jerry the King Lawler gets fed up, sits up, and smacks him straight across the face. And you see Dave Letterman like, I guess we go to commercial now. And when they come back, Kaufman comes back on, and the King's sitting there, and, David Letterman's like, are you guys going to behave? And Kaufman comes out and swears up a storm. And now Andy Kaufman did not like using foul language. And this is, the early 80s, where foul language wasn't on there, and all of a sudden they're saying fuck on TV. And they try to bleep it out with some, like, cuckoo noise. But you can still say that he's saying fuck you, fuck Jerry Lawler. And, and David Letterman's sitting there like, what just happened? And this is why he is the best heel. He came in as a heel, and he left a heel, which is great. His character never changed. He tried to play the good guy, but you knew he was still the bad guy. And which is why I love him, and why he's my number 1. I love Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, and like you said, he came in as a heel, he left as a heel. No one ever really liked him. There might be slim pickings, but nobody really liked him.
Not in the wrestling world.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it wrestling.
Yeah.
And nobody liked him in wrestling. Nobody. But he sold. He made money. You can be a heel and not make money, but it's like, okay, then how you get, you're just an asshole. No, he made money. He sold his heelness. Going after the women, down, saying he's better. He's Hollywood. He's all this, all that. But everybody's still tuned in to see him. That's as heel as you can get, really.
Yeah, you can't go after the top babyface, too.
And I feel you. I understand you feel like you could take some heat from that one, but he was in wrestling, and
he had a belt.
And he was a heel. The intergender belt.
He had a belt, so he's technically a wrestler. That's why he's number 1.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
And I accept the heat. If someone wants to give me heat, tell me I'm wrong. Bring it on. Bring it, because I want to hear what you have.
Vince McMahon.
Kaufman's back.
All right, so my number 1 would have to be the ultimate opportunist. Now, there's like Eddie Guerrero who lie, cheat, and steal, and Edge kind of did his thing too, but Edge did it in a whole different manner. Edge did it totally as a heel. I mean, you know, when he started off, he started with the Brood, which no one really cared for the Brood. But when he got with Edge and Christian,
When he was Edge and Christian?
when he was with,
Oh.
when he was,
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I mean. But thanks for pointing that out.
But I do.
Yeah, but you know, when he was with Edge and Christian, and here I go again, but and they're going with the Hardys and the Dudleys and stuff, and you know they were heels there, and he did a good job, and his wrestling in the ring was phenomenal. I mean, all three of those groups were phenomenal. Yeah. So you know that helped with his wrestling, and you know, but then when he became the Ultimate Opportunist, it just went off for me. I mean, he was going, and that's where he, like we said in the other video, where he came in there and cashed his Money in the Bank, like the Ultimate Opportunist does. Everybody tries to copy that. You know, he has his feuds with, and every time he has his feud, he would always cheat to win. Always cheat to win. He would find the craziest way. And I think that's what made him my number one. It wasn't just that he cheated, because we both like a guy that cheats and does stuff. But he was so creative. He was just so creative with everything he did to cheat and stuff, where your mind was blown every time. You almost had to, like, when the pay-per-view started or something, we'd sit there and watch it, I remember, and we'd be like, all right, how is he going to pull this off? Because we know he's not going to pin him 1, 2, 3.
No, it never happens that way.
I mean, eventually he will. Somehow they got knocked. How is he going to do this? And it was just, I mean, he's the Ultimate Opportunist for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. See, the thing about Edge is that he was such a good wrestler that he didn't need to cheat. So when he did, you get pissed off. Like, you don't need to cheat. You can actually win this match without cheating. But it doesn't matter. I'm a heel. I can do what I want. That's why I love Edge. And two, about Edge is that he had a real life, kind of
feud
with Matt Hardy, who was a huge babyface too. And this was, it wasn't just a rumor. It was something true. And you guys can look it up if you want to. But that made the fans turn against him, which is the best for wrestling. When something real comes up and you just work with it.
And then, then they throw the live sex show with him and
Lita.
I mean,
love it.
He just took it over the top every time. And it was, that's, for me personally, like, this is my list. This is what I wanted, deal with it. So, anyways, that's what we have for you this week. We'll be back next week with a whole new shindig. Who knows what we're going to come up with next. But.
Yeah, but I want you to like, subscribe, comment. Don't be a jabroni. Get on the computer, your, Kindle, whatever. Type. Do it.
Like this side. It's
all about here. Number one. Yes.
See you guys next week.